I am often accused of being a sucker for conspiracy theories. My defence till recently had always been that the Apollo moon landing conspiracy was at least one that I didn't subscribe to, based on the for me excellent grounds that an undertaking of that magnitude would have been impossible to cover up for any length of time. When faced with an issue like this with two conflicting hypotheses, the scientific approach is to 1. Design an experiment that predicts different outcomes in the two cases. 2. Carry out the experiment. 3. Accept the hypothesis that best predicted its outcome. The two hypotheses here are 1. The official version that the astronauts actually went to the moon. 2. The conspiracy theory that they didn't, but were sent into Earth orbit while pre-recorded videos were shown on TV, after which they splashed down to a hero's welcome. Such a discriminating experiment was carried out in 2004 by the Nashville videographer Bart Sibrel. He invited 9 Apollo astronauts to swear on the Bible and affirm under penalty of eternal damnation, perjury and treason that they had been to the moon. On the official hypothesis, the astronauts should have jumped at the opportunity to testify and put paid to a theory that stigmatized them as con men and liars. Imagine the force of a newspaper headline: "Conspiracy theory debunked. 9 Apollo astronauts all testify under oath." On the conspiracy hypothesis, the Christian astronauts should all have refused for fear of eternal damnation. The atheists should theoretically have had no problem. But then, hell's existence has never been conclusively proved. But it has also never been conclusively refuted. So maybe better play safe and not risk it. A further consideration is that should NASA one day come clean and admit the hoax, highly unlikely but still possible, it would look bad to have sworn to the contrary. On this basis, the only astronauts willing to swear would have been the intrepid atheists who were firstly firmly convinced of hell's non-existence, and secondly, confident that NASA would never come clean. Resuming the predictions for the two cases. On the official hypothesis, all the astronauts should agree to testify. On the conspiracy hypothesis, all but a small intrepid atheist minority should refuse. On discovering Sibrel's intention, most of the 9 astronauts did their best to evade him. He formally interviewed 4 of them. Of these, Edgar Mitchell was interviewed at his home. He declined to swear on the grounds that he didn't accept the Bible as true. After this, the exchange became heated. It ended with Mitchell and his son, in Mitchell's own words, tossing Sibrel out of the house with a boot in his rear. They also threatened to kill the filmmakers. When the team got back to their van, they found that a wireless microphone had inadvertently got left behind in the house. On it, they heard Mitchell calling the CIA and asking for Sibrel to be assassinated. The interview with Buzz Aldrin likewise soon became heated. It ended with Sibrel receiving what Aldrin later described as a right overhand sock on the jaw. Eugene Cernan received Sibrel calmly and took the oath as requested. As it turned out, he was the only astronaut to do so. Alan Bean said he would swear, but not on penalty of treason. It is unclear whether he did or not. The remaining 5 astronauts were approached at public events. Neil Armstrong told Sibrel he didn't deserve an answer and refused to swear on the grounds that the Bible was probably fake. Alfred Worden said he had no problem in swearing, but didn't feel the need to do so. Bill Anders, John Young, and Michael Collins all managed to evade Sibrel without committing themselves either way, effectively refusing. Apart from all this, there is considerable circumstantial evidence. The violence of some of the astronauts' responses is suggestive. If someone calls me an idiot, no problem. I know I am not. He is the idiot for not realizing it. But should I subconsciously suspect that I might be, I feel threatened and react. Then there is the NASA spokesman who, when asked why they hadn't returned to the moon in 50 years, said that they had unfortunately destroyed the technology. A somewhat weird excuse. And what about the original audio and videotapes that would have provided strong corroborative evidence for the missions? Well, unfortunately, after an extensive search, NASA concluded that the magnetic tapes were likely erased and reused in the 1970s or 1980s. Very fishy indeed. Are we really to believe that NASA was so strapped for cash that it had to economize by reusing old magnetic tapes? This stretches the imagination. When one sees someone wiping off his fingerprints, one is entitled to wonder what he has been up to. Then there is Alan Bean's preparedness to risk eternal damnation in the hereafter, but not indictment for treason in the here and now. But if he had really been to the moon, he couldn't have been accused of treason. This is effective a confession of not having gone. Sibrel later located a man whose father had worked at the US Air Base, where the moonshots were allegedly filmed. While interviewing the man in his home, there was a knock on the door. It was two CIA agents advising him that should he pass on to Sibrel anything his father had told him about the airbase, he and his family would all be killed. But if everything was above board and the astronauts really had been to the moon, then why bring in the CIA? Its very presence arouses suspicion. This also answers my original doubt about how such an undertaking could have been successfully covered up. CIA has its methods. A further interesting question is why the Russians never officially queried the Apollo missions. They had extensive space experience. The first artificial satellite was the 1957 Russian Sputnik. The first man in space was the Russian Yuri Gagarin in 1961. A 2020 opinion poll, however, found that around 50% of Russians believe the Apollo missions were faked. Resuming, the conspiracy hypothesis is 1. Resoundingly confirmed by the Sibrel experiment that exactly matched the predicted outcome. 2. Backed by considerable circumstantial evidence. Based on this, any decent court of law would declare the conspiracy hypothesis to be established beyond reasonable doubt. At the end of the day, the Apollo program was little more than a somewhat costly $338 billion in today's terms outlay of American taxpayer money to confirm what everyone already knows. The US government lies through its teeth. Finally, or anyone interested, there is an extended text version of this video on my academia page. Googling Academia Gerontifiens should get you to it.